All right, time to get started here. Minimize my Discord. Let's get into some GDevelop and continue on the Dark Tower Defense game. Hopefully everyone's having a good week. It's pretty toasty where I am. I think there's a bit of a heat wave going across quite a bit of the world right now. I know the US and the UK have been pretty toasty. Here in the middle of July. Forgot to turn my little light on too. There we go. All right, got my cup of coffee here. It's decaf because it's evening, close to bedtime. I'm trying to cut back anyways. It'll do. All right, today I wanted to work on the debuff from the Blood Tower, which makes enemies explode. Should be a lot of fun. So let's go to the enemies group, the group of enemies, and add a variable here. This is going to be a debuff. What do we want to call it? Could just call it explode. That'll do the trick. I'll know what it means. And let's apply that. Then I open this up again, make sure it's still there, because I had some issues last time with it not staying put. So let's put the debuffs near each other here. The attributes are things that are more unique, but not necessarily harmful to the enemies. So okay, so explode, debuff explode. And then I'll need some sort of a scene variable for this. Not sure, do I want to make this an enemies? It's probably an enemies variable. Like, it could also be a tower variable, because it's something the tower's doing. So let me see here. Blood-based damage. We could put it under the blood tower. So let's try this. So it's going to be scene, I think it's tower, blood. All right, and then come up here. All right, I think, so we'll do towers, blood, explode, damage. So let me think, it might not necessarily be damage. It's probably going to be like a damage multiplier or something like that. And the number will be a percentage of the enemy's maximum health. So let's say like if it explodes for 50% of the health, then the multiplier would be set to 0.5. So we could start with 0.5 as like a as a test value. Then what we want to do is go to where we have the bullets hitting the enemies. Okay, so this is where we have some options. We could have the blood projectile do damage and apply the debuff, or it could just apply the debuff, and we're going to play around with both. So for starters, I think I'm just going to have it not do any damage, just apply the debuff. So right here we'll say if enemies, oops, I did not like that. Enemies variable debuff exploded. If that is false, then we will set it to true. Then what we do, and that's pretty much it for that part. Then what we do is get Discord out of the way and go over to where the enemies die. So enemy updates, enemy death. Let's see. How do we want to do this? So we'll say if that variable is true, I think I need to capture a local variable here before I do the next step. So let me try this. So we're going to add a variable. This is going to be called I'll just call it damage. Then damage, so if that's true, then damage is going to be assigned it's going to be assigned enemies dot health. What is it? Max health. So we're going to set it to max health times the damage multiplier. Really long variable name. And I think for testing purposes, I want to log to the console what that number is. So we'll say explode damage, and then we'll do that variable. So it's going to be damage. if I can spell right. There we go. So then we take that, and then we'll do a quick check to see other enemies within range. And what we might even need to do is like, just so it doesn't get funny on, just so the engine doesn't get funny on us, I might need to drop a temporary object there so that I can do a check. It's just kind of the first thing that came to my mind. Because I was thinking I could do like if enemies are within distance of the enemy, but sometimes if you try to compare enemy, like for example, if you try to compare enemies to enemies, the engine gets a little confused because I'm not really operating the code at that level here. So without going deeper in the code, it can get confused. So what I might do is just create like a circle and see if the other enemies are within that circle. It's a little bit rudimentary, but I think it'll do the trick. Let me just create a sprite. Oh, okay, well, before I do that, let me try one last thing. Because I don't like creating new objects if I don't have to, but let me try one thing before I do that. I might also add another local variable here. Up here. Explode center position. I'll just call it position. Position. That looks so funny. Position. Did I spell it right? I guess it needs to be like position X. And then position Y. So if that is true, we're going to go ahead and assign those values. Enemies dot center X, or I guess just enemies dot X should be fine. And then this will be the Y coordinate. Then what we'll do is we'll do a check. I'm wondering if since this is going to occur underneath the condition of enemies are dead. There's a possibility this won't work. Let me see here. Well, let's just give it a shot anyways. We'll find out. So declare the damage. That's a number with 0. I know it looks like I'm just kind of staring at the screen, and that's because I am, if you didn't know. It's because I'm thinking of all the bugs that I'm going to trigger here, all the reasons it's not going to work. I can just see them already, and I'm trying to get ahead of them. So, I think... I think there's a couple things I'm going to do. I need to go back out here. I need to add a variable to the enemy object. It's going to be called debuff explode setup. Then let's go to that sprite object. And this does not need to be large. It just needs to be I'm going to make a circle, but technically it can be a square. It doesn't matter. We're really just going to check for the center of this thing. Which kind of means that I probably want it to be more of an odd number in size. Don't really think that it matters too much, so let's resize that. Then draw a circle just so I can see it maybe. And I'll fill it in. Save. Edit the points. I want the origin at the center. 32.5. And apply. This is going to be explode. We'll call it enemies explode center. It's going to have two variables it needs to carry. Position X and position Y. That should do the trick. And then delete this out of here. Don't need that. Because what we're going to do, it doesn't even matter how big this is, I don't think. I don't know. We have a couple of options. We could check if enemies are within a certain distance of it. Or we could check collisions. Collisions could get expensive down the road. So I probably don't want to do that exactly. We could also check if they're inside. Let me do something here. I've never quite known for sure. Okay, here's what I'm searching right now. Point inside object is significantly more efficient than checking for a standard collision. Okay, let's do that. I think. It gets a little dicey. You have to pick a point on a enemy that's being caught in the explosion. So if like a shoulder is in the explosion but the center is not, then it might not trigger. And that could, you know, that wouldn't feel good if you're playing and it's looking like it's colliding but it's not working. It is extremely fast processing time. Yeah, and exactly like I just said here, so it can make objects appear to skip straight through the effect as well. And if you have a really big enemy, that could be a problem. I think I'm gonna do a distance check and not use this item as the visual. So let's also give this thingy another variable. We'll call it time to live, TTL. Let's make that like let's make it 0.5 for right now. I'll probably reduce it later on. Although that might work. It's an explosion. So, okay. So if the variable if the variable debuff explode of enemies is true, then set the position. Then we're going to create that object that we just made. That's explosion or explode. Create that object at explode position X and explode position Y. On the base layer is fine. And then I think also we're going to start an object timer. The timer's name is TTL. Okay, and then let's see, that thing would fall under where do I put that thing? Towers or enemies? Towers abilities. Maybe here. I'm not really using this for anything at all at the moment, so let's do it right here. Enemy explosion. Then here we'll do a for each object. And this is just going to manage the time to live on it. So we'll check the timer. Yeah, so TTL, if that is greater than or equal to, and then we'll need to set this to a variable, which is actually the one that we created on it already. There we go. If that's the case, then we're just going to delete it. Simple enough. Let's save. And then, so now we've got that. It should pop up on the screen. Then we go back to the enemies event sheet. Then we basically just say, for all of the living enemies, okay, yeah, down here under debuffs should be fine. We'll say if number of instances on the scene for the explosion is greater than 0. Then we'll do a check to say if you know what? I'll need to also track. I'll need to track which explosion damaged the enemy so they don't take damage multiple times from the same explosion. But first, let me just check the debuff. So we'll start there. So enemies, we'll make sure it carries the debuff over. Oops. If that variable is false, it's definitely going to be set to true. Oh, well, actually I need to do the distance check. So let's do that. Distance between itself and the explosion center. For now, let's just say 100. So that'd be a 200 pixel diameter. So 100 pixels. So technically larger than the size of that circle, but it'll give us a nice test radius. All right, so let's have that variable to true. Enemies variable explode set to true. That should carry over the debuff. And this might be a good time to go ahead and do some sort of a check. Let's see, maybe there's like an effect. Maybe we could just something for a quick visual look. I wish you could do an effect on the group of enemies. That would be really handy. I could use this glow burn just real quick. So let's try that. I'll just make sure I don't use a fire tower for this test period. Okay, so if the number of enemies, explode centers living on the scene is greater than 0, then if enemies distance to the explode center is below 100 pixels, if the variable debuff explode of enemies is false, change that to true, and then also if they don't have the glow effect on, turn it on. Let's give that a little test here. All right. Oh, well, there's one problem. They're not dying. Okay, now... better yet, there's another way to do this. All we need to check for the visual effect is if this variable is true, and then also if this effect is disabled, then we're going to enable it. That's all we need to do there. So let's try this again. That means the moment it gets shot by the blood tower, we're going to see that it's basically got the debuff, because it'll glow kind of an orange for now. Orange. Some people pronounce orange. Orange. Alright, giving this another test here. Alright, so they're turning orange. That means they've got it. They've got the debuff. Now, if those guys die, they're going to drop a red circle. Technically, that circle is not supposed to stay there. So, let's fix that. In fact, are these guys going to drop one too? Yeah. Okay. Let's figure out why the red circle's not disappearing. Tower, this is tower updates. I'm probably not calling this. So let me go into here. Yeah, right here. I wasn't calling it because I didn't really have anything to do. Didn't have any use for it yet. So now let's see if the circles disappear. They are not. All right, repeat for each instance of these things. If the timer is greater than or equal to the object variable TTL seconds, then delete the object. Is that correct? Well, what if we just set it to 0.5? Hard code it. If it's not that, then what could it be? It's not that. So what in the world? All right, let's go to where those things are created. Oh, up here. So enemy death. Start or reset the timer of the timer TTL. So create the object. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that out of there. I'm going to come over here. And I'm going to say to start that timer, but I need another variable for it. It's just going to be called is setup. So let's check the object. Check if the value is true. Let's see, if it is not set up, then start or reset the timer TTL of the explosion, and then set that variable. To true. That should work. Let's test this again. Well, at least I feel like it should work, but you know, we'll see. All right. Blood tower, check. other towers to kill them. Check. Why is it still just sitting there? Repeat for each instance of them. Oh, actually, for starters, this needs to be up here. So let's take that, put it in here. And then move these. Okay, save. Don't know if that's gonna matter. I don't know if that's gonna change anything. Repeat for each instance. If the setup is false, start the timer of the object and then change that variable to true so it only happens once. If the timer is greater than or equal to 0.5 seconds, then delete the object. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If this doesn't work, I'm going to be pretty confused. Need to charge my phone a bit. Okay. All right, well, that is still not working. It's being very stubborn. Let me double check that everything is set up here correctly. So I'm not convinced it's doing anything. So this is Tower's abilities. I thought this was a different one. So Tower's... Okay. The good news is my code is correct. The problem is that I was not calling the code. So let's call the code. That is my mistake. I came in here to my main level. I thought I added it in here. I added the wrong one. So this is Tower's updates. No, Tower's abilities. It's been a long day. Okay. Now let's run a test. Okay, we're cooking now. Cool beans. All right, so that seems to be working. Now what I kind of want to do is I'm going to kind of like dial up the gears a bit. So let's go into the variables. Scene variables. The damage multiplier Well, let's set it to some crazy number that insta-shots all of the enemies. So we'll set it to, 500%, which will be the number 5. So 5 times the enemy's max health is going to be applied to all the nearby enemies, and they're going to die. They're going to drop, the explosions and kill stuff around them too. And I think what might make it even more interesting is if we enhance the number of enemies that are spawning. So I'm not sure what variables I have for that exactly. Enemy spawning, num spawn interval is 0.5. Let's set that to like 0.2. Num spawning. I'll be honest, I'm not even sure what this variable is exactly. 5. All right, let me look at the events for that. This is where it's going to get pretty fun. It's going to be a chain reaction. So, enemies spawn. Here we go. Let me close some of this other stuff out. I have too many tabs. Let me save as well, because I've done a little bit of work tonight. Alright, enemies spawn. Check spawn interval timer. Pick a random enemy spawner. Create the object pathfinder. This is all repeat. So it's coming out of this array. Array enemies per wave, and then there's an index value in there. So S array enemies per wave. And then the index for that. So let's look at that one. Enemies per wave. So 25, 27, 29. And let's give it a shot. Oh, one other thing that would be fun before we do that even is let's just make a little explosion. So let's get a particle, 2D particle emitter. Considering this is sort of a dark tower defense, we could do sort of a shadowy, maybe like a shadowy bloody kind of thing. So if we take, like, for example, this explosion 2, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I get a pretty good idea. So the emitter force applied is 200, 200. That might be a little large. Why don't we say anywhere from 60 to 120. Spray cone angle is 360. Number of particles in the tank, it's set to 30. At 100 per second. So it should take a fraction of a second to finish those out. 110. All right, let's just give this a shot. So that's going to be called enemy explosion. I'll just say red, orange. So we'll just go back to where the enemies die here. So now instead of creating that explosion thing, we'll create the explosion particle. And it should be that simple, really. Fingers crossed. So let's give this a test. What I'm anticipating, if all goes well, an enemy that is inflicted will glow orange. When it dies, it will drop a circle thingy on the ground and a particle will explode from it while it deletes. Then anything within that blast radius will then glow and rinse and repeat. And in fact, in this case, they probably won't actually glow. They're probably going to insta-die. So that's the test we're running. They should be insta-killed. In fact, what might be interesting is... it's going to be really fast. I should probably put like a small, even just like a 1/10 of a second delay in their death, but we'll see what happens. It's definitely blowing them up. The radius isn't quite so large. In fact, these guys are really beefy, so I see... oh, actually, that reminds me. There's one other thing. Don't quit. There is one other thing I need to do to fix this fundamentally. So each enemy needs to track which explosion they've already interacted with. So let's go to enemies. Let me think. Yeah, enemies, variables. This is going to be debuff array explosions touched. Not a boolean. It's going to be numbers. Actually, it's going to be an array of numbers. So then we need to go to this thingy, variable, add variable ID. Then we need to go to enemy updates. And when we create the explosion, we need to assign an ID. And in fact, I need to track this number. So scene variables, scene, towers, blood, explosion, I'll just say count. And we will use that. Then we will update that variable and we'll increment it by 1. Okay. Then, oh, do I have a preview still running? Let's close the preview. All right, so we have that. Then what we need to do when the enemy touches these down here, strange because I thought I just added something in here. Hey, Code, how's it going, dude? Family's doing pretty well. Glad to see you tonight. Yeah, thanks for hopping on. How is your family doing, bud? I'm being summoned. I'll be right back. Yeah, no worries about the being late. I don't know why there are no pings. I've got Twitch running in multicast tonight. I don't know if it does better notifications. I'll be right back. I gotta go bring the dog in. You know, fun stuff. Okay, I am back. So, you all doing all right this week? Let's see. Where I left off was here. Oh, okay. So I set a damage amount to the object, but I didn't apply it to the enemies yet. So what we're going to do is enemies are going to check their distance to this thing. And then if we're going to check their array. Let me think. Yeah. One sec. Let me go back and see what I had added in here. There we go. That's why I wasn't seeing it. I usually put the name array in the variable name, but I didn't do it that time. So let's go back over here, enemy updates. Has the number explodecenter.id. So if it does, or rather we need to invert this. If it does not, then we're going to add it. Yeah, sucks about your granddad, but I'm glad the rest of you are doing pretty well. What am I working on? I'm working on the Blood Tower's debuff effect, which is basically going to be a chain reaction of explosions on the enemies. So when an enemy explodes, if an enemy is affected, if it's got the debuff, when it dies, it explodes, and any nearby enemies then receive the debuff, and when they die, they explode. Yeah, hopefully they figured out the text box on hover situation. It sounds like they're just looking for basically exactly what you did, but without having to copy the code into many different areas. I know in traditional programming you would just like call a function, but here I think the closest thing you can get is a custom object without actually using like JavaScript. But what you did was really smooth too, because you got the dynamic sizing working. So it's going to be some sort of a combination of what we both added into chat. Most people wouldn't even think so much work goes into text boxes. Also, grats on placing well in the game jam. I'm going to play it here before I get off the stream. I was just waiting for you to hop on. Okay, what was I doing? Enemies. Oh, we need to add that ID object, the ID into the array. So enemies variable I think I renamed the wrong one a second ago. I might be losing it. Variables. Array debuff explodes setup. I am losing it. That is not supposed to be that. That should be a Boolean. And it is not the array. Jeez. Okay, let's add an array. It doesn't even exist. We'll say array debuff, or maybe we'll just call it, yeah. Where did it go? It's like my computer's freaking out. Okay, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna save and close. It is freaking out. It wasn't even my fault that time. Usually it's my fault. Here we go. You said if it was you, you would just have the hover object, have a structure variable with the text. Then you can just run one event to set position and take the child text. Yeah, I know that it seems like that would work really smoothly. Honestly, first in gameplay is like the highest honor if you're making a game. Unless you're an artist, but if you're a game dev, definitely gameplay is the best. So if you had to pick one, that's a really, really good one. Yeah, bugs in G development. I mean, I feel slightly better because I didn't try to mess up this other one. This is just a quick check to see if the thing is set up. So Boolean, apply, save. Enemies, variables. Let's add the array now. Array. Okay, apply, save. Now that makes two of us. Enemy updates. If the array does not have the number in it, then we're going to add it. All right, hopefully this works. I know in the past there were bugs using object variables using array tools. I think they fixed it since then because I reported it. I remember the dev told me, he literally told me in the forum he didn't have time to fix it. But then I noticed they did fix it in the next patch. So, not sure what that was all about. Yeah, we definitely need to do a little jam. I'm thinking in 2 weeks. I'm thinking in about 2 weeks maybe. The question I have is, should we do, like, I'd be happy with doing a really small one, a really small jam, you know, low commitment kind of thing. But I like the idea of taking a week to spend a few hours. Kind of like the jam you've been doing, where it's like 3 days, but you only spend 3 hours on it. I think something like that would be nice. Not something that we have to lose too much sleep over, but that we have enough time for, you know, the three of us or whoever's doing it to have something to contribute and call it a game. Yeah, it's like a virus. Upon death, it'll spread if they're in range. And I am really trying to focus. I started off pretty quick, but I'm getting really tired and I'm missing some things. So if the distance is below 100 pixels, for starters. In fact, I might even expand that just a little bit, say 120. And then add the ID. This is also where we would apply damage. So, enemies. Apply damage. The points of damage will be equal to the exploding objects. Hold on a second. What is it going to be set to? It's going to be set to... Oh, I'd put it in a variable up here. Okay, so we don't want that. We actually want this to go to the object. So let's add it in here. Damage. Okay, so in this case, we want to go to the exploding object, variable, damage, and then we're going to set that to this value. And I don't actually need this local variable here. Or I guess I could put it there because I was logging a message. That should be fine. Let me undo a few things. I guess this could also just be set to damage. Yeah, like 5 hours over 7 days. Yeah, something like that I think would be pretty fun. We'd have some time to like do some Discord sessions, or if I stream part of it or something like that. Give us time to work on it, give us time to sleep on it, and come back to it. If one of us is having like a power outage or something, internet outage, it shouldn't be too detrimental. Okay, now we have a damage. Enemies. Damage, points of damage to enemies. In this case, it should be quite a bit. All right, let's give this a little test. I'm trying to decide if it should be a joint project or we each do our own. Honestly, we should just do probably both. If the people who are new to GDevelop are like brand new, I would want to get their input on that. You know, maybe they don't want to compete with people who've been at it for a while, or maybe they do, right? So basically, I just want to do whatever makes them feel included. I'm struggling to kill these guys. I don't think it's applying the damage. Kind of hard to tell, but I don't think it was. If they're orange, they're infected. It's my temporary visual aid. Okay, what's the log showing me? I don't think that's working. It's showing me explosion damage of a 150. But not very often. So something is amiss here. Yeah, it's definitely spreading. What I could do is also, let me run this again, and I'll just double check that the enemy array is capturing the explosion IDs. Yeah, I'll probably put a poll up in Discord, and hopefully people respond to it in a timely manner. Get an idea for what people would like to do. All right. Come on. All right, so refresh. Let's do one of these. All right, let me do dev tools. Let's show enemy IDs. So we've got, zooming in is kind of funny if I'm paused, but it looks like enemy 36. Where is it? Oops, did not mean to do that. Go away, stuff. Let's see. Which is this one. This one is true for the explode debuff. 31. 31 is right there. That should be affected as well. But it doesn't look like it's got any values in its array. So if I refresh. Yeah, again, it's affected. It probably should have received the ID into its array. It doesn't look like that worked, so that's probably the problem. They really need to add a search function. It's ridiculous without one. For any serious project, it's just a cluster in there. I mean, I even use naming conventions, but like, what good does it do if you can't search with your own tags? Okay. What I need to do here is see if there's any reason it would not store that ID value as an array variable. Yeah, for real. I'm surprised no one has added a search bar mod. Might be an idea. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause it. We have everything going for this except the array storing the variable. Probably a simple fix. But we have the contagion spreading. So that's functional. What I would like to do with my last few minutes here is play your game. Fourth overall, but came first in gameplay. Let's go to this. Is there audio? YouTube 123. How you doing tonight? Go. Did you have any audio in this that I need to account for? Hey, appreciate it. Thanks for subscribing. I'm glad you were able to hop on the stream. Do you make games in GDevelop? It does have audio. Okay. Let me turn my stuff off. Not a creator. Well, appreciate you watching the videos anyway. My friend Lost in Code here made a game in this game jam in 3 hours, or what'd you say it was? It was like 5 hours. Still like pretty small amount of time. And you got 4th place overall. And first for gameplay. So that's actually pretty impressive. You got 4th overall. And then you also got 4th for these specific categories. So let's give it a shot here. Obviously, you're not going to have cover art for a 3-hour game jam, right? Honestly, Code, the reason you were able to win is because you didn't bother making cover art. Let's be honest. That would have been a waste of time. Yeah, it's pretty funny. That's to me, that seems like the kind of thing someone who doesn't make games might say. But obviously, he's in the jam, so clearly he does make games. All right. Anyways, let's play it, or let's look at your your page here. Pick a square and beat the mini game to claim it. AI has a 35% to fail a mini game each turn. Maybe too easy. Have fun. Mouse. All right, let's give this a shot here. Yeah, YouTube, thanks for following. Glad you could hang out with us this evening. Okay. This is actually kind of fun with the X's and O's. How happy would you be if I gave you a $50? Hey, $50 is $50. Super happy. Okay. Oh, nice. You got the music in here. Let's see. Or let me know. Is the music coming through all right? I want everyone to get the full experience of your 5-hour game. Can't hear it. All right, let's turn it up a little bit. All right, here we go. Oh man, I wasn't expecting that. Oh god. Alright, third time's a charm. Quick math, 3 and 4, 7. Alright, let's go here, bottom left. You said just about, but it is low, but design. Alright. Wow. Interesting. I definitely need to play again, because I wasn't fast enough. Stop on the circle. Oh, I clicked it. My mouse didn't work. Code. How many of these ideas did you get from that game jam we started last year? I'm having flashbacks. Alright, got that one. Nice. Just a few. Really slow at this. That was like even worse. Alright, I'm gonna block the computer here. We gotta block him again. Or her. 8 plus 6, 14. It's gonna win if it gets the next. Alright. Let's go. Should we go bottom or should we go right? Because it has a 35% chance. But if there's only 2 squares left, what does that mean? Is that like a 50% chance? Or is it actually still going to be 35%? My favorite hobby is probably game dev, honestly. Game dev and then maybe playing some games, but honestly it's what I love. Outside of computer stuff, what do I like? I've got chickens. Chickens are really entertaining. If you don't have any, they're hilarious. Alright, I'm gonna go to the right side here. Alright. Alright, the AI failed. So we're gonna block. Actually, no, we gotta go for it. We gotta do the X here on the bottom right. YouTube 123, what's your favorite hobby? 6 is 12. Got it. Alright, one more round here. Let's go for the center. Press in the correct order. 1, 2, 3, 4. What? Oh no. I thought I got it. Quick math. 4 plus 8, 12. Did I lose connection here? Looks like I lost connection. Can y'all still hear me? My stream elements are going crazy. You also like games? What kind of games do you play? I was too slow again. Got it. Alright. Success. Pretty cool game. And what was the theme of this jam? This was the Tri-Jam. Tri-Jam 379. Oh, the theme itself was Extreme Tic-Tac-Toe. Okay. So you play Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox. Very nice, yeah. I think everyone in this, I think all three of us play Minecraft. I don't play much anymore just because of time, but I love Minecraft. But yeah, I play a little Fortnite and some Roblox over here as well. So when you say you play Roblox, what version, like what kind of games in Roblox do you play? Like Steal a Brain Rod or something else? All right, so if this was Extreme Tic-Tac-Toe, and that was number 4, what was number 1? Or, that was the number 1 for gameplay, actually. So number 1 was this one, which was number 5 for gameplay. Number 2 was actually 7th for gameplay. They put an apple on their thumbnail. 3rd was 3rd for gameplay. Okay, so that makes sense. And then yours. Nice. Let's see if number 1 was actually any... Let's see how good this one is. This one is a arrows WASD to move cursor, ZX to shift layers, space to place piece. It's a lot of buttons. H, toggle minimap. Said someone is going to make a video on your clone rage game. Oh, nice. Cool. If they do, or when they do, definitely link it in the Discord. That's pretty awesome. YouTube, you said you play Rivals Brookhaven car games? Nice. I don't know if I played that one or not. My son and I played one of the car games not too long ago. You got some McLarens and stuff. You said you feel like they might have cheated on this. I mean, if they even went into different modes. And difficulties. That's pretty indicative of polish, and a 3-hour game does not have polish. Skins? I mean, definitely cool. Was it 3 hours? Questionable. Even in GDevelop, I don't know if I could have put all this in 3 hours and have a game. Alright, let's play it though. I'm really not sure what's going on here. Yeah, the game modes on top of the core game and all the special features. A little questionable, but you did the honorable thing of not taking first, even though, well, because you said you went to 5 hours or whatever. But I'll be honest though, yours was much more intuitive from the start. I feel slightly confused about what exactly is the goal unless I go and read what they were talking about. AI can match in 3 dimensions. Yeah. Cool concept. I'm not gonna be, not gonna lie, but definitely a little sus. Interesting. Cool jam. I like those, the tri-jam, the minis that they do. All right, y'all. It is 10 o'clock my time, so we need to wrap it up for the day. Yeah, no prize, so nothing gained. Hey, first for gameplay is honestly that's the crowning achievement for the game. Because if you have the gameplay, you can always go in and add polish to make it more, pleasant. But the core gameplay is the important thing. Yeah, 4 a.m. there because you're a night owl. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for hopping on, and YouTube123. Thanks for hopping on. Nice to virtually meet you. Thanks for subbing and following, and hopefully to catch you on the next one. I usually stream on Thursdays. We'll see if I can stream the next time. There's a link to my Discord where you can chat and hang out with us throughout the week as well if you want to. And yeah, till next time, thanks for hanging out. And whatever it is you're working on, I certainly hope that you have fewer bugs than I do. So thanks.